Hello, welcome back to the next video on the sort of weight, talking about like you're manipulating weight. Before we start, can you like and subscribe please? I'm going to try and rattle this quickly before the sun goes down, because I tried to film last night and with it getting dark and try to create light in here, it was a fucking nightmare. So quickly talk about being on a surplus or weight gain. Again, be generic, it'll be quite vague, but should be some good points in there. So, obviously the opposite to the calorie deficit, energy balance. Again, the whiteboard's a bit heavy, but I think I actually do need to get a bigger whiteboard, but we'll worry about that later. It could be a present for myself. To be in a calorie surplus and gain weight, you have to be eating more than what you're burning, basically. Simple as that. Again, this equation is dynamic, meaning just because you're potentially going to eat more doesn't automatically then mean that you will instantly gain weight. Things will happen when you do that. So you might start exercising harder, you might start fidgeting more, you might start walking a bit more than what you're usually used to. So if you increase your calories by 200 or 300 and you just assume that you're going to gain weight, it might not necessarily happen, which isn't a bad thing, because it then means you just have to eat a bit more food, but which is always a good thing. But there's been instances of people potentially increasing their calories by 500 or 600 calories, and I think even more than that, but the rate doesn't go up because of all these movements and stuff like that. But again, we'll get into that later on in more detail. So if you're not eating more than you're burning, you will not gain weight and you're not in a surplus. Again, people will say, well, I eat quite a lot because of this and that, and they're just simply not in it. They can assume that they're in it, and they can think that they're in it, but if the scales are not going up, they're unlikely actually in a calorie surplus. Also, why am I talking about a calorie surplus? Well, not everybody wants to lose weight. There's some people that want to actually gain weight. The majority of people will likely want to lose weight because that's just the way that life's going. Being the most obese civilization that's ever lived, all the temptations and stuff, but there are still some people out there that struggle to gain weight, that want to actually get bigger or whatever. There are sumo wrestlers out there. There are big fucking rugby players. So it's not just all about you people that want to lose weight. There's other people out there as well. One of them being me. I don't struggle to gain weight, but being 6'6", the majority of my time is spent in a surplus rather than in a deficit. Anyway, enough about me. Realistically, on to the next point on here. Realistically, the majority of people eat in a surplus. Maybe not every day, but they spend most time or most of their year in a surplus. Because what tends to happen, and again it's a bit harsh, but it is the reality. So what tends to happen is when people gain weight, it's you don't wake up in the morning. I've said this before, but you don't wake up in the morning and be like, oh my God, I'm fat. Like it usually happens over the course of a year. And what happens is your weight will go up slowly, like slow increments. And what that, you can't say for certain, but what that probably is like birthdays, it's probably nights out, it's probably Christmases, Thanksgiving or whatever you celebrate. But it's just common, it'll likely be like celebrations in your life or nights where you've just thought, fuck it, I'll enjoy myself tonight, and all of them have added up. And what tends to happen is over the course of a year, you'll wake up and be like, I'm getting a bit fat, these jeans aren't fitting, and it's just happened over the course of a year or two or whatever. But that's why if you saw somebody in like 5 or 6 years, you're like, holy fuck, what happened to them? And it tends to be something like that. But that's not how everybody gains weight, but I would assume that that is most likely the case, that it's just happened over a long period of time. The other thing is eating a fuckload of food is kind of glorified these days. Like you go onto YouTube and You see people doing all these eating challenges, and as amazing as they look, these people are usually like prepped. They've like prepped days prior to that, and they will prep days after that to sort of stave off like the after effects of it. So if somebody's eating 10,000 calories a day, if they've prepared themselves of likely hardly anything on the lead up to that, and they'll probably exercise it off afterwards. What's his name? The guy Dumb Man versus Food was really good at explaining that stuff. Alan Richman. Is that Alan Richman? Or is he Professor Snape? I'm not sure, but anyway, more often than not, people look at food and their eyes will be too big for their belly, so they'll order a fuckload of food, and even if they don't finish that plate, they've probably an absolute mountain of food already. I was looking at stuff earlier, and I forgot the name of the restaurant, but there's a restaurant in America that has I think it's shrimp pasta for 3,500 calories, and that's a plate. That is absolutely fucking incredible. And I also checked. I was checking plate sizes as well. I was googling plate sizes, and apparently, plate sizes from the 1960s has went from 8 inches until today they're 12.5 inches. So that's 4.5 inches. That's a lot. Ask women. That is a lot. So it just goes to show that. This is why I've spoke about before. Like this is we're technically in an obesogenic diet and obesogenic environment. And what I mean by that is there's so many temptations out there for you to eat a fuckload of food with like cheaper meal deals and all you can eat buffets. Like when you got an all you can eat buffet, you're thinking, I might as well get my money's worth here, and instead of having one plate and being satisfied, you had 3 and then a dessert. Because again, you just want to make your money's worth. And then when you go into these like fast food restaurants, if you buy like a single burger, for example, it'll cost you like a £5, but to get the meal deal is like £6, and that's you'll add like 500, 600, 700, 800 calories onto that just by spending an extra £1. And in your head, it's like, well, that's value for money, but then you kind of have to pay for it later on. So that's what I mean when I say like obesogenic environment. This is why it's getting difficult to lose weight, but on the flip side of that, you have everything at your fingertips to potentially lose weight. It's just difficult with people trying to sell you stuff and sell you like crazy fucking diets and stuff like that. What else was I got to say? Another thing I wanted to mention is the sort of eating big amounts of food it's kind of glorified, as if you've got a big pair of balls if you can eat a lot of food, like trying to show off in front of people. But again, this kind of like your health pays for it in a sense. So the good thing about all this kind of stuff is it's easily reversible if you get a good coach. But also if you learn about these kind of things, you can enjoy like large amounts of food, but you then have to compensate for it later on. Again, this kind of goes back to the saving money. If you have like £10 to spend, or like 20 quid to spend in a day, if you spend a large amount of that at the start of your day, then you've got a fuck all at the end of your day. That would just be how that day has to go. And that goes the same way with calories. If you have 3,000 calories to eat throughout your day and you eat a fuckload on it at the start of your day, then you're hardly got to have any left. That's just the balance that you might have to make up. But people aren't making the balances because they really don't understand what calories really mean to them. And what I mean by that is people have a set amount of calories to potentially gain weight or lose weight or maintain weight, but people actually don't know that figure themselves, and then they don't apply it to their everyday lives. And there'll be people out there that go, oh, well, I'll read the calories on the back of my sandwich, which means absolutely fuck all if you're not then tracking the rest of your stuff throughout the day or the week. But as I say to you, it's this kind of stuff is easily reversible because I'm quite an advocate of you enjoying yourself, but there does have to be like a a balance to that, you can enjoy yourself too much, and then you could be that person that then gains weight over the course of a year. And some things genuinely happen as well. Like you might have eventually have a kid, and things start slipping, and you get stressed at your job and things like that. Again, it's easily reversible, but you might have to like weigh up how many times you go out, or how much food you always want the burger and the pizza and the chips and all that shit, but maybe that's not the best choice. But again, that comes down to your individual preferences. One thing I wanted to mention as well, actually, is this is completely bonkers, but you go into the like fast food restaurants or like menus and stuff like that, and it says you have to eat 2,000 calories a day, or the average intake of a person's, what they should be eating on a daily basis is 2,000 calories, but then they'll go ahead and sell you a 2,000 calorie meal, like in the morning or in lunchtime. And I'm like, what the fuck is that even on there for, if you've just got to sell them that whole 2,000 calories there and then? And again, if you go to America, fuck knows what they put on there in terms of daily recommendations, because they're selling you something which has 3,500 calories in it. There'll be even more stuff like that, like cheesecakes and shit like that. But anyway, the whole calorie thing on restaurants and recommendations boggles my mind. Anyway, why do people want to gain weight? It'll usually be to either increase their strength or increase their muscle. How much that would be, varying rates. People react to it differently. There's very few people out there, and I wouldn't recommend it, that want to just get fat as fuck. Again, unless you're a sumo wrestler, but few and far between the kind of people. But I wouldn't recommend you gain weight without doing something like exercising in some way, because it's then literally pointless, I believe. The rate in which you should gain weight would be slow and steady. There's never a good time where you packing on a fuckload of weight in a very short space of time would have any benefit, I don't believe, unless a very special circumstance that I am not aware of. Another thing to mention, and we've kind of spoke about, like when you step on the scales, like masking or the scales masking like progress and things like that. Just because you increase your weight on your scales does not mean that you've gained fat. It might just be water retention. It might be because of the sodium and things like that. So just like masking, just like your weight is masked coming down, it can be masked going up as well. You could stand on the scales and be 80 kilos, go out for a big massive meal and be like 83 kilos the next again day with your consumption of food and drinks, and then the following day you might come back to like 80.5 kilos. Again, that's anecdotal and I'm just throwing numbers out there, but it might not necessarily mean you've actually gained fat. Some of the benefits of increasing your calories is you'll recover more if you're exercising, which you should ideally be doing. You'll have more energy to run about or do whatever the fuck you want. And another thing there I should have put in there is enjoy maybe a bit more decadent foods. Like, it's pretty obvious that your food choices between being in a surplus and being in a deficit will be slightly different, and the calories within those foods. So this would be a time to maybe slightly enjoy those kinds of foods a bit more, and in bigger quantities than you would in a deficit. It's just the perks of being in a surplus, basically. I think I'm done there. Done this in one, by the way. Quite proud of myself. I went off on a bit of a rant in the middle, but it's just bizarre, the whole obesogenic thing. Tips to sort of round this off. If you're wanting to gain weight, and a quick ways to doing it is eating dense, ideally whole foods. So things like peanut butter's a good one, like avocado, bananas, things like that. They're really easy to eat. Peanuts of certain kinds, things like that. And like I said, if the other thing as well is you can eat things like, obviously, like a bigger increase in rice and shit like that. Like you can just increase the portions that you've already got. I actually think a good tip is between like you being in a calorie deficit and a calorie surplus, foods shouldn't change that much. Just maybe the one or two of them, but obviously then the quantities of them. Because realistically as well, and I meant to put this in the last video and I fucking forgot, but from you being in your maintenance calories to your surplus calories, maybe only a few hundred calories, there might only be a difference of about a few hundred calories. So that means you might only be like a chocolate bar or a packet of crisps away from gaining weight. And it's the same being in a deficit as well. If you don't try to be in a deficit and then you eat a packet of crisps or like a bowl of ice cream or that, you then might be into maintenance. The margins are not that big. So people think, oh, I need to gain weight, I'll just eat a fuckload of foods, which all you're doing is going to make your life harder down the line. Because when you go into your next cut, you're going to be cutting as fat, like a fuckload of it as well. Again, I'd complement that way. Being in a surplus, complement would be exercise of some sort. If you don't, again, you're just going to be packing on the fat and not have any sort of benefits from it. The other thing is just take your time with being in a surplus. Enjoy it. Ideally, if you're trying to gain muscle or improve in any sort of way, you'd ideally want to be in a surplus for about 3 months, maybe 6 months, and that's a good amount of time of enjoying foods. And especially when you take your time and be potentially in a surplus for 3 to 6 months, with this dynamic equation, your calories are likely to increase over that course of 3 to 6 months. So you'll then get more calories, be able to enjoy more foods, and have a really fucking great time with it. I think I'm done there. I'm going to explain that buffer zone with the maintenance calories and the surplus better in the next video, I think. These great, fantastic points come to me as I'm writing stuff out, so I'll need to remember to actually put them in the next video. I am done. I will see you in the next video.